Hey, welcome once again to another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Bloxel, with my co-host, Mr. Matthew Balzer. Today, we're going to be updating you October 1st, hockey season right around the corner. As I would like to say the preseason has ended, but now there's two more games in Europe. The Global Series, as the NHL is calling it, both Edmonton and New Jersey are playing in Germany and Switzerland before they play each other in a regular season game in Sweden. But we're going to get you caught up. Lots of stuff happening around the NHL today. But before we jump into all that, a nasty piece of business that happened last night in the Washington-St. Louis game. Our friend Tom Wilson decided to do another headshot. Matt, why don't you talk about it? Because you know I like this guy. But you also know that there's no need for this kind of hit in hockey anymore.
I know, yeah. So, I'm a huge Tom Wilson fan. The Washington Capitals are my second favorite team, next to the Canucks. So, but this one, there's no excuse for this hit. The guy coming in right through the offensive blue line. He moves the puck, and in a preseason game, there's just no need to finish a guy off like that. But yeah, it's been with this hit. It's been only 15 games since he's been last suspended in last year's playoffs. So he has an in-person hearing on Wednesday. So it'll still be a couple more days until we find out what exactly the number of games he gets. But I'm guessing with all the history that he has, getting suspended twice in the preseason last year as well, that this could be pushing 10 games.
Yeah, and that's what I keep hearing is a lot of people are pushing for 10, 12 games. I don't have a problem with the timing of the hit. If you watch the replay, the timing's good. Puck's still kind of there. I just have a problem with the headshot that he did and targeting the head. Weird fact, this will be his third suspension from a preseason game, and all three have been against the St. Louis Blues. So there must be some bad blood there or something. I'm not sure what, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if he only gets 5 or 6 games. I'd like to see a 10-game suspension for the hit just to get rid of this crap out of the game once and for all. But we'll see what the NHL decides. They're either going to hit him lightly or they're going to hit him hard. And if they hit him hard, it will hit him in the pocketbook too with his new contract.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of stuff to get caught up on. Why don't we touch on some of the minor trades that were made today, and then we'll jump into all the players that got put on waivers.
Yes, so a bit busy day as teams try to finalize their rosters. By tomorrow, by 2 o'clock, they need to have their rosters finalized for the season. But four trades today, three of notable names. The Edmonton Oilers traded defenseman Jacob Urabek, who they actually signed this offseason, to the St. Louis Blues for a conditional 6th-round pick, which becomes a 5th-round pick if he plays 50-plus games for the Blues. Connor Carrick was traded from the Toronto Maple Leafs to the Dallas Stars for a conditional 7th-round pick, which becomes a 6th-round pick if he plays 50-plus games. And then the Calgary Flames traded defenseman Brett Kulak to the Montreal Canadiens for 2 defensemen, Rinat Valiev and Matt Teromina. Teromina is basically a lifer in the American Hockey League, but he's been able to put up a bunch of points there. And Valiev might be a later call-up in the season as things go along. And Kulak's been assigned to their American Hockey League as well.
I think Oliver Shilington will probably still be high on that list to be called up prior to those guys.
Yes. And then in the last trade here is just American Hockey League trade. Nick Baptiste was traded from the Buffalo Sabres to the Nashville Predators for Jack Doherty, who's a defensive prospect who does have a good amount of upside.
Well, we also had let's talk about who went on waivers today. But we also had a player that was picked up on waivers.
Yes, so the big waiver pickup today is the Anaheim Ducks picked up Pontus Aberg off waivers from the Edmonton Oilers. I think Auburn got beat out by guys like Ty Ratty, Kaylor Yamamoto, and Jesse Puljujarvi on that right side. They picked him up at last year's trade deadline, but he just never really seemed to find a fit there on any of the lines. But with Corey Perry's injury on the right-hand side, Auburn could get a top 9 look right away. And then today's notable waivers, especially here in Canuckland, Sam Gagner, Darren Archibald were put on waivers today. Gagner is a big, huge surprise for us Canuck fans. We've been waiting to see if Benning would do this. Like he said, if a young guy deserved to make the roster, that they would make room for him. And Gagner was the odd man out, with guys like Godolbin and Leipzig beating him out to get into a top 6 role. Gagner still has 2 years left at $3.1 million a year. I'm not expecting him to get picked up, sort of like the Zach Smith situation earlier this month. But some other notable names on waivers today is Dale Weiss from the Philadelphia Flyers, Dmitry Yaskin and Chris Thorburn from the St. Louis Blues, Daniel Carr from the Vegas Golden Knights, and Curtis McElhinney and Calvin Pickard from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Garrett Sparks beating out both McElhinney and Pickard for that backup job. I think McElhinney had the better preseason over Sparks, but Toronto going the long-term route, that they didn't want to lose Sparks just from winning the Calder Cup this offseason, being one of the AHL's best goalies last year. But the big name that I will be interested to see is Dmitry Yaskin. I think this guy will get picked up by some team. He's only 23 or 22, 23 years old. He's had his ups and downs, but I think he's still young enough that he can contribute around 30 points.
Well, with regards to Sam Gagner and the Canucks, I was surprised when I heard that name, but at the same time I wasn't, only because he hadn't played very well. He was kind of a square peg in a round hole in Vancouver. He just never really fit in on any line. The only line he really gelled with last year was with Thomas Vanek and Brock Besser, and that was only a throw-together line for about half a dozen games. That's a lot of salary that's there. I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona picked him up, but outside of them, I don't see anybody else taking a stab at him. It's sad news, of course, for Gagner and his family, because he does have a really young family that he just moved to Vancouver here last year, which means they'll either stay here while he goes to play in Utica if he clears. But again, in Utica, he's not going to get the ice time that he would hope for, only because they've got to play the kids ahead of them so they continue to develop. But for me, it also sends a message, Jim Benning sending a message to the veterans that he will give up their spots if they don't keep playing and the kid's ready to step in. I like that. This also does something interesting, which some people may not have thought of yet, is by him going on waivers and potentially clearing them or getting picked up, it allows the Canucks to still have room to pick up a guy on waivers over the next 24 hours if they choose to, because they can still send Tyler Mott back down to the farm without having to clear waivers. But if Mott plays on Wednesday, he'll have to clear waivers if they decide to send him down after that game. So interesting development there, and I'll be curious to see what happens and if the Canucks do pick up someone. Now, if you want to, comment on that some more. So.
Yeah, and to add on to that 2017 free agency where we signed Burmistrov, Nielsen, Delzato, Gagner, and Weirkoch.
And Vanek.
It was just a terrible off-season of signings. And the one thing to add on with Gagner, it's a bit frustrating that they send him down. Going off of last year's stats for the Canucks, out of the top 7, four of the guys in our top 7 in points are no longer with the team. The Sedins, Vanek, and Gagner, all looking to be gone. So the only guys from last year who are in the top 7 are Horvat, Besser, and Edler from last year. So from a team that's starving for points, moving Gagner down, like I would have actually liked to have seen Tim Schaller moved. I didn't think he did like a whole lot to make this team. Even though it's like if Gagner isn't in your top 6, there's not really a fit for him. But with a team starving for offense as it is, it does question just a little bit. But I'm just glad Benning stepped up to what he said and made the move.
Well, I think that allows some younger guys like Pedersen, Goldobin, and Leipzig some of those offensive minutes, which I think will help their development up with the big club that Gagner may have taken up if he was still with the Canucks. And Gagner just never really gelled with a lot of the existing players on the roster. I mean, he played well with the Sedins, he played well with Vanek. But outside of that, there wasn't a lot of guys that he gelled with that are currently on this Canucks team. So for me, I'm okay with it. It clears up some cap space. And hey, it frees up some playing time for some of the kids. So some notable players that got waived on the weekend that cleared waivers. Why don't you catch us up to that, and then catch us up to date with all the injuries, the injury update around the NHL.
All right, yeah. So some notable players that got sent down for the Canucks: Brendan Gaunce and Evan McEnany, both cleared waivers and were both sent down to Utica. I was surprised the team didn't take a shot at Gaunce, even though he hasn't had the most success. But he did show at flashes last year that he could play at the NHL level, along with Curtis Lazar. Also cleared waivers and got sent down to the American Hockey League. Talk about a big disappointment from being a first-round pick. Sort of along the same
cheeseburgers off the ice.
Sort of along the same lines as Brendan Gaunce, even though I think he was picked a little higher in the first round. But this guy had huge upside. He was the captain for Canada at the World Juniors and had great success there. But he just never found a fit in either Ottawa or Calgary to really fit in. So hopefully in the American Hockey League, he can try to rebuild his game a little bit. But that was an interesting name that I saw get moved down. A couple other guys I didn't go through waivers, but are knowable names. Detroit's first rounder Philippe Zadina got sent down to Grand Rapids. Alex Nylander from the Buffalo Sabres got sent down to the American Hockey League. Zach Aston Reese got sent down to Wilkes-Barre from the Pittsburgh Penguins. And Carter Hart got sent down by the Philadelphia Flyers, losing out to the backup job to Anthony Stolarz to start the season, as Michael Neuvirth's dealing with a minor injury to start the season.
Some of the players that actually made the rosters, some of the young players, why don't you give us that update?
Yeah, so a local guy, Dennis Chowalski, made the Detroit Red Wings out of camp, along with Michael Rasmussen. So those are two first-rounders that are going to eat some big-time minutes. Detroit's dealing with some injuries with Nicholas Cronwell, Trevor Daley, and Mike Green, all dealing with injuries right now. But Chowalski had an excellent preseason for Detroit, along with Michael Rasmussen. The Calgary Flames, Dylan Dubé and Juuso Valimaki, their first-rounder from a couple years ago, both made the team. Valimaki beating out Brett Kulak for that last spot in the bottom six there. Kokaniemi made the Montreal Canadiens to start the year. And for Ottawa, Brady Tkachuk and Alex Formenton both made the team. And then for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Justin Hall, Frederick Gauthier, and a defenseman that they signed over from the KHL, Ozinaganov. I'll go with that. It's a bit of a crazy Russian last name.
I'm not even going to try it.
Yeah. I wrote it down. I'm just like, I'll try my best there. But those are some young notable names making the teams. We'll find out by tomorrow if there's any other younger rookies that make the team right out of camp.
Of course, here in Vancouver, Elias Pettersson, and surprise, Tyler Mott making the squad. After we actually commented on him last week in some of our videos about how he stood out with his incredible speed that he was playing with over a few exhibition games.
Mm-hmm. And then getting into injuries, just a few. Some notable big names. Torrey Krug is out 3 weeks with an ankle injury. As people remember, in the playoffs last year, he had that gruesome ankle injury that ended his series against Tampa Bay. Dustin Brown is out indefinitely with a broken finger, so that's a huge loss for the Kings in their top six. Sven Andrighetto with the Colorado Avalanche is out 2 to 4 weeks with a lower body injury. And with the Columbus Blue Jackets, along with Seth Jones starting the year on IR, Ryan Murray is also dealing with a lower body injury and will start the year on injured reserve. So those are two big, huge losses for the Blue Jackets, who basically have to lean on Zach Werenski, David Savard, and Marcus Oliveira to carry a lot of the load to start the season there.
Interesting stat on Eli Tolvanen, who was sent down by the Nashville Predators. A huge prospect for them. It was expected that he'd make this team, but he got sent down to their farm team. Tell us about his contract.
Yes, so he has a clause in his contract that if he plays 10 AHL games, that he has an out clause that he can go back and rejoin the KHL, which Nashville really hopes that they don't, which that doesn't happen. He'd be able to return to the team once the KHL season is over. But I think if you're Tolvanen, you're going to be that first call-up if there are any injuries. But with a bit of a disappointing preseason, Nashville is hoping he can get a quick start down in the American Hockey League. And I believe if Laviolette said, it's just like they could have kept him as a 13th forward, but if he wasn't going to play, then there was no point keeping him with the team. They'd rather him go down to the American Hockey League and play on that first line and rip it up there.
Well, he'll have to hope that there is an injury in order to get in the lineup before the 27-game suspension to Watson's up. Other news, we had a couple of players that are retired.
Yes. So Scott Hartnell and Radim Vrbata both announcing retirements after both playing 17 years in the league. Scott Hartnell played his NHL career with Nashville, Philadelphia, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. He had 707 points in 1,249 games, including over 1,800 penalty minutes. And in the playoffs, he had another 47 points in 99 games. And Radim Vrbata, a bit of a journeyman, played in Colorado, Carolina, excuse me. So Colorado, Carolina, Chicago, Arizona, Tampa Bay, Vancouver, and Florida over his big career. Had 284 goals, 623 points in 1,057 regular season games. Scott Hartnell, what can you say? This guy was a good pest out on the ice, especially with the Flyers, where he enjoyed most of his success. And Radim Vrbata, we got to see a lot of him here, either with him playing with the Coyotes or the couple of years that he played with the Canucks. Especially that first year, he was such a great fit with the Sedin twins on that top line. And then with the Coyotes, where he did most of his damage against the Canucks, especially in the shootout. He had that devastating backhand upstairs move, which the Canucks couldn't seem to stop at all whenever he came down in the shootout. But, two veterans hanging it up today.
A few fun facts about Scott Hartnell. He was the original Grizzly of the Philadelphia Flyers. But there was only 4 active NHL players that currently have played more games than him, and only 17 more active NHL players that have more goals than him. So that stat really surprised me, being that the most goals he ever scored in one season was 37. So, and of course, for Bata, I'll never forget playing with the Sedins. He scored 2 goals against Calgary one night, where he batted the puck out of the air when the passes were deflected towards him. And he was an impressive goal scorer, but just never really, like you said, he never really got established with one team and seemed to be always chasing his next contract. Captain news. Montreal Canadiens named a team captain today. And why don't you fill us in with what the Vancouver Canucks are planning?
All right, yeah. So Shea Weber was named team captain. We were hoping that our guy Brendan Gallagher could get named captain, but Weber was the obvious choice here, even though he is out until December with the injury that he has. But Brendan Gallagher and Paul Byron were both named assistant captains. along with Weber being named the captain. Just a perfect choice there. And then in Canuck news, Jim Benning announced that they're using a meet with the coaching staff, and they were going to make their decision on if they were going to go with the captain this year or not. So we'll find out tomorrow, most likely, if Bo Horvat is named the captain. I'm hoping. Along with a couple other updates on injuries, Antoine Roussel skated today. He's hoping by the end of the week that he'll be able to join the group and start to get into game action. He will not be assigned to Utica for a conditioning assignment, though. So as soon as he's healthy, they're going to try to get him in the lineup. Demko was sent down to Utica, but he's still dealing with concussion symptoms. So not the greatest start there for Demko. Hopefully it's a speedy recovery. And then some notable line combinations. Right now it looks like Ben Hutton was the odd man out, along with Alex Biega. Jim Benning saying that he thinks Derek Pouliot's a great fit with Eric Goodbranson for some reason. Pouliot, who I thought had the worst preseason out of all the Canucks defensemen that they're keeping. I still don't understand why Hutton isn't getting played over Pouliot, but
well, I guess you and I have disagreed on this because I think I've also heard that Delzato was not today, but yesterday was practicing with Biega as potentially the odd man out with Hutton in the lineup with Tanev. So it'll be interesting to see what they do come Wednesday for their opening day, whether they go with Delzato or Hutton or Pouliot. And Travis Green obviously has lots of decisions to go with the same defense and the same goaltending as last year.
Oh, man. But, yeah, technically what I would go with the starting six would be Edler with Stetcher, Hutton with Tanev, and then Delzato and Goodbranson as your bottom six. And then with the forwards, we have our big line of Berti, Horvat, and Besser. And then Eriksson was with Pettersson and Godolbin. The third line was Mott, Sutter, and Virtanen. And Schaller, Beagle, and Leipzig, who was with Marcus Granlund alternating. So as of today, that looks like what the starting lineup is, with Marcus Granlund being the odd man out as of right now. But that can change by Wednesday night. But after a pretty disappointing preseason where the Canucks got outscored 10-30 and only had six different guys score, and out of those 10 goals, only 5 of them came at even strength. So 5 even strength goals in
I'm going to be the optimist here and just let you know that the season starts on Wednesday. Let's give them a game or two before we get all over them, because to me, honestly, preseason is about getting your rhythm back, about getting back to game shape, and about just getting ready for the season. So I know a lot of veterans, they don't care what's going on in preseason. And last year they had a terrible preseason and came flying out of the gates with all-star Derek Dorsett. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
I'm hoping things can turn around as soon as the season starts. But just going off of preseason, it's not exactly optimistic to start the year, especially after the home and home with Calgary. We go on a long road trip where it's 6 games in 11 nights, and we face teams like Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, Florida right off the bat. So we'll get to see how this team shapes up. But you never know. Last year, like, they went into Pittsburgh, had a big win and stuff. And I know when they come back home, they face Washington and Boston. But last year they
had Tampa Bay again.
I know, in Tampa Bay. But last year, when they had that long road trip and came back to face Washington, everybody was thinking it was going to be the letdown game. And then they walked right over Washington. So you never know. But yeah, hopefully it's not too much of a rough start, and that guys can start gelling right away. I'm glad that we get to start see Pettersson at the center ice position to start the year. That they didn't start him off on the wing. You got Louis Eriksson there to help out defensively, even though I don't think Pettersson is weak defensively. I think his two-way game was actually pretty underrated this preseason, but I think it's mostly for Godolbin.
It's also for the language too, I think, for Pettersson.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that too. But yeah, I'm glad Goldie and Pettersson get to start the year together. I'm hoping Godolbin isn't on a short leash and that they let him play and do his thing. I don't know why, for some reason, that the Russian players get some bad rap, especially Golovin. It's just he's a young guy. He's got high offensive abilities. Just let him go out and play, and as long as he's not too bad defensively, you can live with the mistakes, especially when you know this team isn't going to be contending for the Stanley Cup.
Well, I think that'll be the design with Goldie there because of they need somebody to score. So he's obviously on this team for a reason. He's obviously playing with Pettersson for a reason. I do like the fact that they start against Calgary at home. Believe it or not, their second game against Calgary, Calgary will play Edmonton before that. So it's not a true home and home for them. But Vancouver will get them twice in a row. And then that long road trip is going to really hopefully bond their team together a little bit. And hopefully it's somewhat of a success so that they can get off to a good start this season. Final thoughts before we end the program today, which has been absolutely loaded with news and notes.
I know, yeah. It was just one trade or one move after the other. But we'll find out tomorrow all the results the Sam Gagner situation, if we do get a captain. But yeah, it's a lot of movement today, and I'm hoping we can get things going on Wednesday with a big win.
Excellent. Well, guys, thanks so much. This has been another episode of B&B Hockey Talk. Remember to share and comment and like our post on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave your comment there. Talk to us about your favorite NHL players, your favorite team. Let us know how they are doing. Obviously, we're trying to update everyone with everything all NHL so that everyone, no matter what team you follow, you can participate in this show. I know we're a little biased when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, but that's because I wore Stan Smyl pajamas when I was 8 years old. So, but I know we're both longtime Vancouver Canuck fans. So, but anyways, this has been, again, Aaron Bloxel with Matt Balzer. B&B Hockey Talk, we thank you so much for watching. We love bringing you these episodes. We will see you guys tomorrow with another episode. Have a fantastic evening.